Thanks for sending these in, by the way. I'll say it early. If you want any questions answered about your relationship life, about your dating life, about how you've been in the past, or if you're thinking some stuff, absolutely feel free to send me a question. I want to say hello to people that have joined. You can send it to mikefinelli.com/ask Mike, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Of course, it's all confidential and all that fun stuff. So, question 1. Someone from a previous relationship likes the new me and wants to try again. Okay, new me means that I guess someone's been doing some inner work. Awesome. So, I'm setting boundaries. Long story short is we had something 2 years ago and it didn't work. So he started a new relationship, but it seems he doesn't feel connected to his lady since she's not as open-minded as he is. Okay, that's cool. We went for coffee 2 weeks ago and he wants to see me again. He really, really moves me. All right, that's a good thing. But I'm not going to be part of another woman's suffering. Okay, so some assumptions there. Should I keep friends relationship with him until he decides? Okay, so here's a key question. So should I keep a friend's relationship until he decides what he wants to do, or should I run? So the first question, the first thing that comes up, so I'm making some assumptions here because I don't have all the information. The first question to ask yourself, is he his old self? Because you say that you're the new self, which typically means that you've done some transformational work, you've been working on yourself, you've been getting better. And so the question is he his whole old self? Because we all grow through and past relationships, right? We grow over time. And if we're not growing, then we're standing still, right? And so the question is, should I keep friendship with him until he decides, or should I run? So whoever's on the call, I urge you to, what do you think should be the answer to this? And then I'm going to chime in, and while you're at it, see if it makes sense. Which two ways, and I see your questions and I'll get to them, okay, I promise. Which of the two ways feels more empowering, more expansive, and more in your soul alignment? Without thinking. Like you ask the question without thinking. Yeah, thanks, Shen. I appreciate that. So this is where we tap into our inner wisdom, right? We need to listen more to our gut and to our heart, not in our mind, because our mind has all these subconscious patterns, which I always talk about, right? And so this is where we begin to cultivate self-worth, and we begin to cultivate how we behave outside of relationship and then in relationship, because it doesn't change. In fact, when you get into a relationship, you're going to get triggered even more, right? How's the song, by the way? I just want to make sure this is high enough. So remember, if for some reason waiting feels constricting, you feel anxious, or you feel these feelings of insecurity, there's a couple of things going on there. First of all, you shouldn't feel that. So that could potentially give you the answer. I can't say move on or stay. I don't want to use the word it depends, but it really does depend on where do you see your self-worth. Is waiting for someone to show up for you feel expansive? Does waiting for someone to show up for you feel like it's in the soul alignment? If anyone that's on the live right now thinks that waiting for someone to show up for you is expansive, I'd like to know what your secret is, because it doesn't feel very good that way. And so that's really the long and the short of it. Look, we need to begin to cultivate different behaviors. And if you're feeling anxiousness, if you're feeling insecure, this is where we begin to cultivate a little bit more of that self-love, that more of that expansion of who we are, begin to develop our own self-confidence. All right. And thanks for joining, Kika Bikini. So this is where we're at. I mean, we need to be able to get to a place where we're not, waiting for people to show up for us. We deserve more than that. And so we cultivate that through the practice of self-love, which I always talk about, and you guys always hear me talk about. So really the answer is there is another question. Does it feel expansive? Okay, so Shen, thanks for that. Move on. I feel like I'm leaning that way. Again, this is not a yes or no necessarily. This is a question. It's an empowering question. Does it feel good waiting around for somebody? And if the answer is no, then no, it is. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take potentially a question that's jumped on here. Okay. Perfect. That's number 2. I hope that's pretty clear. Number 2. Hey, Mike. Hey, how are you? I've been sort of dating and seeing someone the last 18 to 24 months. It's a long distance thing. Oh yeah, I love the long distance thing. We connect every few months. Things spark up, and then we kind of go our own way, and we are separate. I'm finding it hard to get. Sorry, the grammar's a bit off, but how can I get more out of this guy? I'm tired of chasing him down. How do I get him to call me more? Okay, so yeah, so I guess we're at an age where long distance relationships are kind of the thing. I think they've been in the past, but more so now with the lockdowns and the limited travel, there are a lot of couples that are out there. But the first thing that comes up here is that, if we look at people's behavior, we can really determine their pattern. As I crank up the air conditioning here, we can really see people's behavior based on how they show up and their patterns. So I have some clarity. Looks like it sounds like you get together, things kind of really heat up. You're all of that. You hang out in person. You do the nasty. You do your thing, and then when you're separate, there's not a lot of calling. There's not a lot of communication. Well, this can feel very overwhelming for someone from anxious attachment style. And I used to have an anxious attachment style. I'm a recovering anxious attachment style person. And anxious attached people have a really hard time with long distance, with separation, with not communicating for a while. So if this particular person is not communicating with you, there's a good chance that it's triggering that, right? So this is where we start to do the inner work and see what attachment style do I have, and what attachment style is important to me. If you want to know a little bit more about an attachment style, feel free to send me a message, and I'll be happy to kind of talk about that, maybe even on our next call in a little bit more detail, right? So, it's very interesting about the dating world, right? I mean, in this point, it doesn't sound like you guys are kind of together. You get together, you do your thing, and then you leave or he leaves. It's not very clear, and you're apart. And so there's this toxic patterns in dating. There's always this thing about, there's a very popular dating coach out there that says rules about dating. You go out on a date, first date, you probably heard this one before, but don't call the person until like 3 days or something like that. And so I don't know, again, I don't bash other people's work. I commend it because they're helping. But not texting someone that you're interested in, or not texting someone that you've been together with for a month or two, whatever it is here, and then separating and then not connecting with them. It really goes back to 2 things. Either they're not really into you, right? Or there's a greater amount of individuation with this person. And what do I mean by that? Is that this person probably has some stuff going on. They're busy. They're doing their life. They're doing their thing. They enjoy the 2 or 3 months or whatever it is that you guys are together, and then you leave or he leaves, and this person is so busy that they're so individuated. They have their own activities, they have their own hobbies, they have their own things, that maybe they don't need to speak to you all the time. Maybe they don't need to connect that often. And so there's always these patterns. So these patterns, is it the same pattern when you guys are together, or do you live together? There's some assumptions here, right? But so we're taught these ridiculous things about not texting somebody and not showing too much interest. You want to pull back because we associate, I'm not going to text this person, for 3 or 4 days after we've seen each other because I don't want to show too much interest because I'm too cool. Okay, great. That's old paradigm bullshit. That's old matrix stuff. That's patterns and toxic stuff we need to get away from. And it's not just in dating, right? It comes into being your authentic self. So whether you're dating or you're in a relationship or you're single, it doesn't matter, because this is cultivation of self-worth. Self-worth is communicating what you want and communicating what you need unapologetically, as I always say. So if you really like someone and you're into them, please contact them, text them, be with them. Don't wait. So it's pretty interesting because the two questions are interrelated. Our self-worth is taught from a very different paradigm, very different dynamic that needs to change. It's at a different level. It's old toxicity codes, right? So we need to be able to cultivate self-worth by the communication of what it is that we want, right? So individuation. Maybe this person has got a lot of stuff going on. Let's go the other assumption. They're either not really that into you, but if you guys are together every couple of months, maybe he is. But the other thing is developing your own rituals, developing your own hobbies, developing your own interests. So maybe you're a little bit busier than the other person, so you're not really waiting around, or you're not really chasing this person down because you've got your own thing going on, right? You've got your own stuff. You've got your own habits and things. So I have an exercise that I do with my clients is you draw a circle and you draw yourself in the middle. You can be a stick person. And then on the inside of that circle, you put in the things that anchor you, things that you love doing, hobbies, interests, all that stuff. And then on the outside, you put things that are low vibrational and that are toxic. And so what we want to do for this exercise is you hone in the center, and in the center are going to be your hobbies, your interests, the things that ground you, the things that anchor you, the things that expand your soul. So you are not waiting and chasing, but you're living, vibrating, being the best version of yourself. So this be, do, have, so you can be all that you can be, not the army thing. Do your thing, and then you will have whatever it is that you want from a higher realm, a higher vibrational frequency. Okay? So this is how we cultivate self-love, through the expression of our self-worth, by not waiting, chasing, those kinds of things. And so I think what's important here for you specifically, person, is you need to get clear on what it is that you are creating with this person. You say you get together with each other every couple of months and all that. What is it that you guys are creating? What is the intentionality? What is it that you're trying to create with this relationship? It doesn't sound like you're in a relationship. You're in a situationship, I call it, right? And so you need to be very clear and intentional on what it is that you're creating, right? And so in my unrelationship blueprint, I talk about one of the parts. If you haven't taken it yet, go to unrelationshipblueprint.com or just go to my bio. And so in one of the parts there, I talk about how you write your relationship vision, what a relationship looks like for you in your mind. So when someone comes into your life and you guys are hanging around, then you can actually create some intentionality, and you know exactly what it is that you want from a place of empowerment and being able to communicate that. And then it's in that communication of what we want is where we are developing our self-worth. We're not developing our self-worth by the response, because if you tell that person, hey, you know what? We've been hanging around for you come and you go, or I leave, depending on the situation, and then we don't communicate much. And it's like, look, this is what I need. I really need to hear from you every day, let's say. I want to do FaceTime. I want to be able to do some kind of, dating thing, which is what you need and what you want based on the current situation. But at some point, the communication of what it is that we want, the intentionality behind it, what we want out of this, what are we creating is the question, is where we put our money where our mouth is, right? Is getting that person to express what it is that they want, express what it is that you want. And if it's in alignment, great. I think I just did a video recently about compatibility. Sorry, as I get more comfortable. I did a thing about compatibility, right? This is where we need to start looking at the yellow and the red flags. Also in my unrelationship blueprint course, mini course, which is absolutely free, is where we look at yellow flags and red flags and showstoppers, right? Things that are like, hey, wait a minute, this is not working for me. You start to see the patterns, because people's patterns are very very the same. And so this is where we begin to develop self-worth, is the communication, what it is that we want in relationship is where we begin to develop our self-worth. So to some of the comments, I'm having that issue. I'm struggling with connecting with my partner when she is not here. Yeah, so it's actually very common. Like I said, we're getting into situations where there's a lot of long distance relationships because of the current dynamic. And so this is an invitation for you to communicate what it is that you need, defining what the struggle is, and go within. What is it that specifically I am struggling with? Are you struggling with how this person shows up? They're not around enough. So get clear on that. And then really it's about unapologetically saying, hey, look, I need more of you, but in a reasonable way. Like I said before, there's that circle, right? Do your thing, do, and then you will have everything that you need. Everything that you need is within yourself, right? But I get it. You're struggling connecting with your partner when she's not here. So this is where we put our money where our mouth is, right? This is where we communicate what it is that we want and have that uncomfortable conversation. It's so difficult for us, and I've talked about this before, to have this uncomfortable conversation where it's either going to take the relationship to the next level or it's going to fracture it. And so this is the two places it can go. And they're very scary places to go, because one breaks the relationship and then you got to deal with that. And the other, the invitation to bring it to the next level now is going to add more of you. It's going to ask more of you to level that up. But this is how we grow in relationships. This is how we break the toxic patterns, right? This is the beauty of this work. This is the beauty of expansion. It is about intentionality, about consciously communicating, about individuation and self-love and self-worth, and building confidence through how we communicate and how we relate.